So Rick, how did your paths cross with a guy like Ramblin Jack Elliott?
Well, I was on a school vacation. I went to a school up in Massachusetts called the Stockbridge School, and one of my classmates was Arlo Guthrie. He was in my class, and we became friends. And on a school vacation, from Christmas or Thanksgiving or something, I went to visit Arlo down at his parents' house in Howard Beach, and Woody was in the hospital at the time, and Marjorie, Arlo's mother, was there, and us kids were hanging downstairs in the house playing a little guitar and talking. I was 15 years old, and I went upstairs for something and walked past the kitchen, and I see this guy in the kitchen with a cowboy hat on and cowboy boots, and he was talking to Arlo's mom. Of course, he's 15 years older than me, so he didn't really notice me. I was a kid, But when I went back downstairs, I asked Arlo, I said, "So who's the guy in the kitchen with the cowboy hat and the boots?" And he said, "Oh, that's Jack." And that's when I first saw him. And then I learned about he was a guitar player and a singer. And later, when we went back to school, someone was playing a record in one of the dorm rooms, and it was Ramblin Jack. And I was just totally taken by the guitar and the singing. And I went into town on Saturday and bought myself a guitar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's when I first when Jack became a hero of ours. He was a hero of Arlo's, because he was doing a lot of stuff that Woody couldn't do anymore, and he was so good at it, and we were just taken back by his fantastic guitar playing. Like so many other people who were learning how to play guitar, they would listen to Jack and they'd say, "Oh, I want to play like that," So that's how I first met him, and that was a long time ago. Well, I started playing guitar, like I said, after I heard a Jack Elliott record, and I was just learning how to play, and it was always a hobby, but I just kept playing, and I learned more and more and listened more and more, and I loved that music. I loved listening, and Alice Brock turned me on to Bessie Smith and Lonnie Johnson and all these blues players early on, and I was listening to all that old stuff, and I fell in love with the blues, and I fell in love with the folk music, and I was listening to Woody and Cisco and Sonny Terry and Brian McGee and all these great players that Arlo knew because he grew up with those guys. So I was, just focused in on all that stuff. And about 20 years ago, I was doing some work for a friend of mine on a recording studio, because I did a lot of I did a lot of carpentry and stuff. And it was for, the recording studio was Rory Block's recording guy. And she came, I traded some of my labor for some time in the studio to put down some songs to give to my mom or something, my family. I wasn't planning on making a full recording, but Rory Block came in. Rory Block, the great finger-picking country blues singer and blues artist, terrific performer. And she heard what I was doing, and she said, "Well, do you mind if I put some vocals on that?" And I said, "Well, of course, that would be an honor, And so she convinced me to make my first CD, and she produced it, and that's how I sort of got started in making my hobby a little more than just a hobby. Yeah, and I've been doing this stuff with Jack for about 35 years. He comes to New England, and we go on tour, and I sometimes would be on stage with him, and we would do 3 songs together, and travel, and we were having more fun traveling and getting from place to place, really, than the shows. And recently I've been opening his shows for him. I do 3 songs or something just to warm up the crowd. And I just love doing it. And but I'm not a stage hound. I don't need to be on the stage. But I've been getting better at it, and I enjoy it. And it's a passion, And being friends with Jack for all these years, when you become friends with your hero, it's pretty amazing. And we're like brothers, so it's a lot of fun.
You think there's any stories you have not heard yet from Jack?
You know, I've heard stories from him over the past 35 years, stories that no one else has heard, I'm sure, about his travels with Woody and little things that he remembers. His memory is phenomenal. And I have some recordings of him telling these stories, but, you know, just for personal, I wouldn't be, you know, trying to make a commercial thing out of any of it. And yeah, I've heard lots of stories.
What's the song or two that he sings where he like lights up? You could just see that this is the one he wants to project to the audience.
Well, he's got so many, but some that come to mind are the South Coast. It's a wonderful story. And the Buffalo Skinners. And he has a passion for some of Bob Dylan's songs that he's learned. And old cowboy songs like Diamond Joe, and just dozens of these wonderful, some Woody songs that he still does. Talkin' Sailor, he lights up when he does that song because he loves it. And what's it called? There's another one, a cowboy song, Ranger's Command, that Woody wrote, that he loves doing that one too. But there's just so many, you know, and he never really does a set list. He'll have a set list with about 100 songs on it, and he might do 3 of them or 4 of them, and he skips around, and he'll remember one that he hadn't done for a while, and he'll attempt it, and he might not get through the whole thing, but he'll make a story out of it.
Oh, sure.
You know, so yeah, he just has such a repertoire of hundreds of songs, and sometimes when we're riding along in the car, he'll remember a song that he hadn't done in 50 years, and he'll start singing it. And I'll say, well, where did that one come from, Jack? He said, oh, and then he has a story behind it, you know, which is always wonderful.
This happens to be the anniversary of the death of Pretty Boy Floyd.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was reading it today, and I mentioned it to him. I said, you know, I don't know if you know, just as a point of interest, 1934, Pretty Boy Floyd died today.
You know what? Did he tell you that we were just talking in the car on our way here? We were just talking, and he said something, and it reminded me of some lyrics, you know, Pretty Boy grabbed a log chain and the deputy grabbed a gun, and in the fight that followed, he laid that. We were talking about the song that Woody wrote about Pretty Boy Floyd. That's amazing. He must have sensed that it was the anniversary of his death or something.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we got to talk.
You have a story about Jack now that he's listening?
Well, Bob Dylan called him the king of the folk singers, and I think he was right.
There you go.